Hey, this is DJ LEK from Holy SIMCHAS with a video lesson on how to DJ. Okay, so if you're new to DJing, you're gonna have a look at this piece of equipment here. Is called a controller. Okay, and a controller is basically gonna be your first piece of equipment when it comes to DJing. This controller is not plugged in at the moment. I'm gonna give you a sense. What it will be controlling is it's gonna be controlling your computer. Controlling what we're gonna start you off on with is a DJ software called Virtual DJ. What you have here is a lot of knobs, faders, and this is called a jockey wheel. Okay, so when they say disc jockey, give you a little bit of a sense of what that means. Is the history of DJing started with discs known as records. So that's why a DJ is called a disc jockey. Okay, he's jockeying something called discs. Disc jockey would also apply to DJing with something called CDs, which was a later technology that came out after records. And now what we don't have, these are kind of discs. Wait, were we supposed to pick somebody up there? Edit that out. Okay, so we are making a DJ course at the same time as traveling to DJ events and picking up in the holy cities of Israel throughout the Judea and Samaria, picking up hitchhikers and bringing them around, because we are Am Yisrael. We're Holy SIMCHAS, and we are making, changing the world one simcha at a time. So lots of these things, some people call them knobs. So let's just get some terminology down, okay? These are called faders, okay? And these are channel faders. So what you have here is you have two channels, okay, that actually split up into 4 channels. So what you have is this is your deck 1, okay, and this is your deck 2. You could think of it as a channel or as a deck. This, like a shift button, just like on a computer, where you have a button that's called the shift button or the alt button or the FN button. What that does is it on a computer. The keyboard will function differently depending on whether or not you have that button pressed. And the same thing here. That's what this button here is. When it says deck 3 or deck 4, that means it's going to change this from deck 1 to deck 3. Okay, so that takes care of that. But that's kind of an advanced feature to go ahead and shift decks and be using 4 decks at a time. We're going to start out with ignoring those buttons because we're just going to be using 2 decks. And before we use 2 decks, we want to think of just using 1 deck. When you look at your virtual DJ software, you're going to put in what's called a track, and the track is going to appear on your laptop screen at the top, either blue or red. What will appear in this display here on this Numark mixer is the beats per minute. So I know we're going through a lot of different terminology here. I just want to tell you, first of all, the things that you're not going to pay attention to, because some things you're going to pay attention to only once you're hooking up headphones, like this Q gain and Q mix. Master gain, you're really only paying attention to when you are working with your mixer. This is going to be the next level of priority. Right now, we're not even talking about how to use headphones and what's called PFL, pre-front listening. And we're just going to be talking about what's going on here. So as I said, you've got 1, 2 decks, okay? And those are controlling your 1, 2 tracks, okay? They'll be on your screen as red or blue, okay? As I said, this is your fader. What kind of fader? This is a channel fader, and this is a cross fader. All right, excellent. So now that we know that these things are called faders, okay, we have channel faders and cross faders, okay? And your channel faders are going to control the volume of this deck, okay? If this deck is selected on deck 3 mode, then it's going to be controlling the volume of deck 3. If it's not selected on deck 3, it's going to be controlling the volume of deck 1. Now we come to the crossfader. Crossfader is, well, what a fade is basically lowering the volume or intensity, right, on a track gradually. Okay, you could fade down to 0. You could fade all the way up to 100%. Now when I'm DJing, I like to keep my channel faders somewhere around 70%. Why is that? Because there are certain parts in a party where I want to give it a boost of volume. And if I'm already maxed out, then I don't have a boost of volume to give it, unless I'm going to be pulling on my I'm going to be pulling from my mixer. Okay, mixer is the next piece of equipment we'll talk about, or from my master gain. There are ways, even if you're maxed out here on your channel fader, to get a little bit of extra volume from your master gain. All right, but generally, so you have what I like to call headroom, is room to go above. I like to keep this at around 70%. Now we come to a little bit of a lesson on what is the crossfader. The crossfader is basically like this. Right now we're at 100% of the input from deck 1. Okay, this is all deck 1, again, unless it's switched into deck 3. 100% is coming out through deck 1, and 0% is coming out through deck 2. That means even if the channel fader of deck 2 is up 50, 70, 100%, 0% of deck 2 is going to be coming out of the main. Okay? This is on this you have output over here coming through RCA jacks, and you can take sound out through twin RCA cables, one left and one right. It's going to go into your mixer. Okay? This is kind of a beginner level Newmark controller. Okay, and you can tell because the outputs are RCA. Okay, and a more advanced, you'd have outputs that would be in the form of PL or in the form of XLR outputs. Now, once this is plugged into your computer, and you could plug it into your computer through your port over here, your USB port, and you could use a USB 2. This is a USB 2 jack. Of course, it's upside down, but a USB 2 jack that would go on the other side to USB 1, and that would go to your laptop. So once it's all hooked up and you've got something playing through Virtual DJ, you're going to see indicators here telling you about how much signal you have coming in and the level of distortion. It's going to start green, turn yellow, and then red if the signal is coming in too hot. I want to try to avoid being in the red, and there are many ways you can avoid being in the red. Okay, but that's a lesson for another time. So far, what have we covered? We've talked about the channel faders. We've talked about the crossfader, and I think you understand. If this is at 0, if our channel fader for deck 2, which alternatively shifts into deck 4, but we'll just talk about this as deck 2, is at 0, and I crossfade into deck 2, I'm going to have 0 volume from deck 2, and I'm going to have 0 volume from deck 1, even though my channel fader is at 70% because I faded out. And if I have a little bit of volume there, right, then I'm going to crossfade across, and I'll only get a little bit of volume. To the extent that I'm in the middle, I'll get equal amounts,